amazing occurrence. We are so blessed and so grateful. And I'm not going to waste one more minute because with me is the mayor of the moment and of the nation, Sylvester Turner.
Thanks, Monette. Very, very kind. And look, what a very special moment it is today, and I think you can tell by all the people who are here. I do want to start on Monette Basil. Please give it up to Monette. She's just been incredible. Yes, and let me just thank everyone. I do want to acknowledge the council members who are present. Of course, we're in Councilmember Robert Gallegos' district, so I certainly want to acknowledge Councilmember Robert Gallegos and the leadership he's provided as it relates to this park ever since I've been mayor, and I know even before, to Councilmember Sally Alcorn, Councilmember Abby Kamen, and then, of course, Councilmember Edward Pollard, who is a member of Antioch Baptist Church downtown. So certainly want to acknowledge him. David Mintzberg, who's the chair of Houston First, is standing here. So really appreciate him. Well, Councilmember David Robinson, he and I just left one another, and then we've united. Councilmember David Robinson, give it up to him as well.
Thank you, Mayor.
And then this very, very special group right here, because these are members of the Jack Yates family. And of course Jackie Bostic, you know. But these are all these are about 15 members of the Jack Yates family, which is just monumental and historic in and of itself. And then, of course, we have Pastor McElroy, the pastor of Antioch, and the First Lady, who are here as well. That's a part of the Yates family. It just doesn't get any better than that. I do want to acknowledge Georgia Nolan as well. Where's Georgia? Georgia, want to acknowledge Georgia. And then we have the National Association of Colored Women's Club, the Top Ladies of Distinction, the National Women of Achievement, the National Council of Negro Women that are here. And then we also have Eileen Lawal, as well as Zion Escobar with the Houston Freemantown Conservatives. Eileen, you know, when we were at Antioch, Eileen and the whole group was there as well. So this is a very special moment. And I hope and then there are a number of other people. There are many people who are here who have helped to make this day so very, very special. So let me just say thank you and good morning. What an honor it is to stand here on the last day of Black History Month and in front of the historic Jack Yates House to make an important international in-scale announcement. And let me tell you, there are a number of people who were driving to make this happen in the month of February. You know, I'm looking at Manette, looking at Eileen, and so many others who really wanted this to happen in the month of February. And so I'm glad we were able to make this happen on the last day. We are, of course, at Sam Houston Park, one of the Houston's oldest municipal parks, and a protected landmark by the City Council due to its historic significance. And again, I want to thank Councilmember Gallegos for his work in helping to make sure that this park is maintained and all of those affiliated with it. I cannot say enough, earlier this year, the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, designated 3 historic house sites located here in Sam Houston Park as part of its Slave Route project: the Kellum Noble House, the Reverend Jack Yates House, and the 4th Ward Cottage. As UNESCO wrote, the 3 houses complemented themselves as they underlined the impressive resilience and resistance that enslaved and people from enslaved descent showed throughout the years. The 3 historic houses are owned by the city, and the designation will ensure that Houston's African American history will never be forgotten. We agree with UNESCO that the 3 houses are an important initiative in preserving the history related to enslaved African Americans in Texas. The 3 historic homes will be joining the following 7 UNESCO Slave Route project sites that were designated in 2019. Emancipation Park, 1872. Olivewood Cemetery, 1875. African American Library at the Gregory School, 1810. The Reverend Nell Pullum and Emma Eddie Pullum House, 1897. Antioch Missionary Baptist Church, 1866. Mental Passage ceremonies and port markers project at the Port of Galveston, the 18th and 19th centuries, and the Workman's Cottage, 1924. UNESCO launched the initiative in 1994 to contribute to a better understanding of slavery, to promote sites and itineraries related to the slave trade and the contributions of the descendants of African people, and to preserve archives and intangible heritage associated with this history. Our goal in preserving homes and having these designated in the Slave Route Project is to educate residents and visitors, as well as create cultural tourism about the steps of the forced migration of people from Africa to North and South America, as well as other parts of the world, such as the Middle East and Asia. It's only fitting that David Mintzberg, chair of Houston First, will be here, because as we market our city, outside of the city of Houston, outside of Texas, outside of the United States, people need to know about the slave route that took place. And it is a cultural tourism site. And so we need to highlight, uplift that. It's not just about sports and musical venues. It's about the history that has helped to make this city, this country, what it is today. And it should never, never be forgotten. Houston's art, culture, diversity, and innovation are well known, but this international designation lifts our commitment to preserving and learning from our historical assets. And so it is very important that as we build for our future, we make sure that we preserve our past and tell a story so that it will never be forgotten and never repeated. And if you don't know your history, you are bound to repeat it. And it's not about African American history. It's about all of our history, because African American history is American history, and it's a story that needs to be told all around the world. And for that, I am so appreciative and moved to have so many members of the Yates family here, because they are ingrained and a part of the fabric of our city. Again, let me thank everyone for helping. The Planning Commission is here, and others for helping to preserve and maintain, and for all of those who have worked tirelessly over the years to preserving our history. I cannot say thank you enough. What a special day, and I encourage all Houstonians to visit these sites and continue learning our shared history. Now, Manette, let me turn it back to Manette. Give it up to this lady one more time.
Thank you very much, Mayor, for your kind words and your inspiring words. I'd like to ask Allison Bell, our Executive Director, yay, come and be with me at the podium. Allison is probably the hardest working person I know, and she smiles every time I say something, which is even more incredible. So we have had a great ride, and we're riding into the future based on this incredible designation. Architecture speaks to us in various ways, and these buildings, created in the 19th century, represent the lifestyle of people of varying backgrounds and experiences that tell the stories of the intersection of those that helped build Houston for the future and that migrated here. The Kellum Noble House is the oldest standing house in Houston on its original site, 1847. That's a pretty broad statement. It was built in a plantation style with wide verandas to capture the breezes, and built with the help of enslaved labor who made bricks from the mud of Buffalo Bayou to construct the home. It was subsequently sold, and became one of the first area schools in this area of Houston. It also was the first park, and notice I use the word singular, park department headquarters when this became the first city municipal park. Emancipation Park being the first park of all parks in Houston. It also was the first Houston Zoo, with a bear named deer and other animals more on the local scale than the international scale. They started eating each other. So anyway, so there are a lot of firsts for this one house over where you parked. And I hope you'll go see that when on your way out. And then the next house right behind us, the Yates house, speaks volumes of our friend, Mr. Reverend Jack Yates, who came here and emigrated from Virginia with his family, and 11 children ultimately were raised in this house, along with many of the people you see in front of you who actually came and visited throughout the years in the house and lived in it as well. Martha Whiting Goddard, great-granddaughter of Reverend Yates, will speak about him. 25 years ago, the Yates family, led by Reverend Yates' granddaughter, Mrs. Whiting, took a bold step and a leap of faith in donating the house to the Heritage Society and ultimately to the city, with the goal of not only protecting the house and renovating it for future generations, but utilizing it as a teaching tool of African American heritage and history in Houston. And what a great, great gift this is to our city, and we commend all of you for that great, great honor. Mrs. Bostic, the senior member of the class group here, was a participant along with Martha Whiting Goddard in that momentous, momentous decision. And to your right here, the Fourth Ward Cottage was located on Robbins Street, and it is a really early example of Arcadian Creole architecture that came here to Houston. It is thought to be one of the earliest houses that were built in Freemanstown. Unfortunately, development got in the way, but fortunately for the park and for the city, it was donated to the city and moved here and restored. You'll have the opportunity to walk through there. It is not furnished as a house museum, but actually shows you how architectural changes were made over time, and also with grass depicts the various people that lived in the house and their professions. We have 10 historic buildings in this park, 16 structures altogether. The 10 that are here, 9 of them have been moved and restored almost over 7 decades that the Heritage Society has been in existence. We are the stewards and the managers for educational opportunities for the public so that all can learn about Houston's founding and its incredible history. I'd like to thank not only Allison, but our hardworking staff. We have a very great, wonderful staff. Anna Trejo, who's here in the background, our communications manager, has worked tirelessly to help today. And our volunteers and especially our board of directors, we have several of them here with us today. Public foundations and generous donors have over the years supported the renovation and the move of many of these structures. These include the Houston Endowment, the Brown Foundation, and the Wortham Foundation, and many, many others. And we are very grateful for that. Former curator Ginger Burney, along with Martha Whiting Goddard, is owed a great deal of thanks for crafting the application to UNESCO. And Eileen knows how hard this is to achieve. It's taken 3 years, and we are just so proud to have this come all the way from Paris in the communication with them. In addition, we are all being considered by the National Park Service Emancipation Trail Study to have these 3 buildings included as sites that will be between Galveston and Houston. So that is in process for the years coming up, but that will add a whole nother dimension to tourism and educational programming. So we thank you, Mayor and council members, for your leadership in making all this possible. And now it is my great pleasure and my great honor to introduce Martha Goddard Whiting, representing the family. Martha has been a longtime board member, a member of all our committees, I think.
Thank you, Manette. I'm speaking on behalf of my family today to thank all the people who've worked to make this possible. This is for my 4 sisters. Ms. Bostic is here. The other 3 are Sammy Ellis, Nan Garza, and Tommy Casey, and myself. Our Aunt Pinky bequeathed the house to us through our mother, and about 30 years ago my mother had been working with the Heritage Society, and she decided this would be a good place for education to continue to tell the story about Jack Yates. The steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord, and Jack's steps were obviously ordered by the Lord. When he came to Houston from Matagorda County over 150 years ago, they came to the banks of this bayou, and so it made sense, since Baptist Hill was at Bagby and Rusk up the street, that this house should be back here so we could continue following those steps that God had sent him to, and bring others to this area so they would know where our story started. And we also stepped from Virginia to Matagorda County and up here to Houston. So this is God's journey. This is God's story. And as long as we continue to tell it and show the opportunities and the friendships and love that have developed here in Houston with not just our family, but other families of every race, creed, and color, we're doing what UNESCO set out to do in the beginning. This is about peace, because that is a fruit of the Spirit. And since UNESCO is about that, as long as we tell their stories and continue to tell their stories, we continue to bring others to God. Thank you.
We are so proud today to have our district council member, Gallegos, who has been a stalwart, many years supporter of this park and all that we're about. Council member?
Thank you, Manette. I just want to start by saying, proud to be here on the last day of Black History Month, to be celebrating UNESCO, who's added these 3 homes to the Slave Route Tour. I also want to thank the mayor for being there. I know he had mentioned it earlier that we have been working with the Heritage Society, with Manette Basil and Allison Bell, and the board of the Heritage Society to save the history. This is our history. This is Houston's history. And it's so important that we save our history here at Heritage Park. I know in District I, we also have the Harrisburg-Jackson Cemetery there off of Broadway and Lawndale. And the mayor was out there at Smith Addition celebrating a new improvements at the Woodruff Park there in Smith Addition. And he had residents there at Smith Addition that were so proud to know that they have this cemetery there in the East End of former slaves, hundreds of former slaves. And I'm hoping that we can work together, Mayor, with the Harrisburg TERS to see what we can do to make sure that we save that cemetery, save that history. It's so important that we do that. It's so important that we save our history here in the city of Houston. So I want to, last week at the Quality of Life Committee, which I chair, I was proud and honored to have the Parks Department speak, to have the Heritage Society speak, Andy Eakin speak, on an agreement that Council, I hope, will be voting on within the next couple of weeks, a new contract between the City of Houston and the Heritage Society, where we know that in the future this beautiful park, these beautiful buildings here that tell our history will be saved for generations to come for our city. So we're proud to know that that will be coming to Council hopefully in the next couple of weeks. And I know that my Council colleagues will be supporting that. So thank y'all.
Look, let me just say in my closing comments, I want to thank these women for helping to make things happen. I see Allison over there, and Manette, and Eileen, Miss Escobar. I mean, these Margaret Wallace Brown. You know, I mean, women. Well, you know, next month is Women's Month, so I mean, you know, this is the final day of Black History Month as we roll into Women's Month. But I want to thank these women. I want to thank, of course, all of these council members and Councilmember Gallegos for his leadership, and the council members for being so very supportive. I appreciate Dave Mesberg for being here, because Houston First is an important component of making sure that we tell our story around the world. And then of course, lastly, to Martha Whiting and to Jackie Bostic, to this entire family, let me just thank you all, because you all have just been incredible on this journey, and it is a journey, and it doesn't end, because they're adding to the history of the Jack Yates. So it's just incredible. So again, have I left anybody out? Oh, is the Congresswoman?
We'd like for you all to tour the 3 houses. We also have refreshments in the gazebo there, just cookies and water. But Mayor, We'd like you to be the first person in the door here for a few minutes. I know you're on a schedule.
Let me say one last thing too, because I don't want to forget the Congresswoman, because the
Is she here?
Europa is here, but let me acknowledge though. Let me acknowledge Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee for her leadership in all of this, because she's been up in Congress, she's been in D.C., she's been fighting to help to make this possible, to make this happen. So even in her absence, certainly want to acknowledge her contribution to this entire initiative, and can't say thank you enough. She's historic in her own right. Okay, and so certainly one thing. But Europe, I know you want to come make some comments.
Yes, thank you so much, and hello to everyone. It is certainly a pleasure and a delight to join you on this very exciting announcement. And thank you, Mayor, to our wonderful mayor, the greatest mayor of the city of Houston, our mayor, Mayor Sylvester Turner. Thank you so much for your leadership, and to your team that's behind me as well. And to all of you, greetings on behalf of Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. She is traveling en route to Washington, D.C., but certainly wanted to be here with you personally. As the mayor said, she played a very instrumental part in making sure that this happens, and so we thank everyone for your role, everything that you've taken, every role that you've taken to make this happen. And so we're certainly excited, and to be able to acknowledge this during our culmination of our Black History Month. And we know that our history is so rich. We celebrate it all throughout the year. But thank you again for this announcement, Mayor, for this wonderful news for our city and for all of our residents. And so we thank you so much on behalf of Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. And as she always says, God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.
Can we go inside? Can I go inside? Or
I would say yes if you want to. I would go in now.
sorry? Get behind you. Yeah, we'll capture you behind. You're gonna have to get over here. Because you're gonna be in the middle.
Natural. It's in the DNA.
It's in the DNA. That's all you can say. Okay, we have some pictures here of the Emancipation Park with Jack Yates. That's what the Houston Negro, the first school, the Houston Academy. That's what Antioch looks like before the storm of 1900 when the people was knocked off and they re-put it. And that's my aunt Pinky and the first Martha. Okay. There was three of us Marthas. But anyway, this is the living room. And of course we have Grandpa Yates' picture. and we have a clock donated by the family, a piano that belonged to one of our aunts, and this was kind of set up as they thought it would be set up. But when the house was moved here, the Heritage Society took off. It had wallpapers. Ma and Pinky had done the house over in 1928, and what they did was they took off everything, went back to see what it looked like in 1870.
Nice.
And so everything is the color it was originally. This is the dining room. It was always a round table here because it was bigger than this because there were so many people.
Right.
But there was a sewing machine because Jack had seven daughters.
Right here.
Yeah, he had 7 daughters and 4 sons. And the 7 daughters were all worked on the sewed, they did quilting, knitting, tatting.
Whatever they needed done, they did
Yeah,
it.
they did. This was my Aunt Pinky's room. She was a teacher at Gregory School. She and my grandmother Nanny, they went to Spelman. Now my grandmother Nanny lived in Acres Home. She helped when they first started getting teachers out there.
I thought y'all originated from Acres Home, you know.
Well, Jack had 2 children who owned property in Acres Home. Yes, and so my grandmother, though she lived out there, she and her husband lived out there, but after they divorced, she still stayed out there on her property. And we would go out there in the summers and stay with her. Anything that moved, she had her Winchester and she'd shoot.
Is that one of those old-fashioned wood heaters, wood stoves?
Yeah. That's how the house was heated. You see those circles up there, the heat would go up. And that's what they had in the room. That's one of my aunt's rocking chairs. We've given, furniture and stuff like that. It's more furniture really upstairs that we've donated.
No, this is great. I like it. This is nice.
Yeah, and then we have a porch out here. It's a kitchen out there that's kind of.
That's okay, Paul.
It's all right. Yeah, it's a kitchen out there. When they moved the house, they took out like all the bathrooms and the washing facilities that were down here. But the kitchen has all the things that they would use to iron, cook, wash, you name it. It's all in there. It's all in there. So.
Well, we certainly want to preserve this. I mean, this connects our past with where we are today.
Right. We have the plantation here all the way to emancipation. Yeah. And so you can see all over the world what happened here in Houston and where those steps have gone. They're still going.
Well, we're so glad you're still here to tell the story.
Well, thank you.
Okay, I'll clear out.
Yeah.
Do you want a quick soundbite?
I'll get some quick move.
From the mayor. From the mayor. Are you good? Okay. Okay. Yeah. I'll let Allison know.
Sorry? Oh, I'm going to come back in. I just want to get some shots.
Is everybody out here bring this town and tell them the oldest standing house in
Hey, how's everybody doing? I know you.
Charlotte.
Hi there.
Visit us, and
I've
learn
already
about
done my story.
history.
This is some action.
Do you know
So